This one's perfect. I mean, I think it drinks as proof. It's really good for me.
Yeah. Let's try this 20-year-old.
He's gonna fucking open it. Look at this.
You have to twist my arm.
I think angels sing whenever you take that cork off, so. Welcome back to Arts and Culture, where beer don't count, but bad decisions do. I'm Matt.
I'm Jason.
And today we are about to see a grown man get an asexual boner.
Ah, who?
It's you. We have a super special episode today. We are in a good friend's cellar of ours, Mr. Pat, who is sitting off camera over here. And we are tapping into his bourbon collection, and we have him chained up behind the couch over here and gagged so that way he can't stop us.
You probably shouldn't say that, should you?
Well, we'll just
edit that out.
Yeah, we'll just blur our faces. Yeah. Nobody will ever know that it's us. Yeah. But we are trying the infamous unicorn. What's the title of the book?
The best bourbon that you will never try.
The best bourbon that you will never try. But we are super excited to try this. We have neither of us have ever had this.
True.
If you are watching and you're not listening, you need to watch. In front of us, we have multiple bottles of this product. And if you know what this is, then you'll know how hard it is to get. We are not going to be so rude as to tap into some of these waxed ones that are sitting in front of us. But we are going to open this, was it the 16-year-old?
Yes, sir.
Signed bottle here with all kinds of fancy autographs on it. But yeah, I'm going to kind of let Jason take the point on this one because he literally read a fucking book on this subject before we came here. Yeah. But we're going to learn all about the story behind Hirsch Bourbon, the history behind it, the rarity of the juice, and again, Jason's giant boner. So go ahead.
Which one do you want me to start with?
We're going to start with your boner.
I mean, to be honest with you, it's an honor to be here. I never thought I'd be in a place that has all these things behind me.
Yeah.
And very excited to see it.
We have the strategic camera in front of us where you can look behind us, and I got it framed so it's just like everything is like, there's people that are going to be tuning into this and just like freeze framing it and just kind of like going through and like
you can zoom on YouTube. You can zoom on YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a crazy collection, and just thank you, Pat, so much for letting us try this.
Yeah, man, appreciate it.
We're very, very excited. So tell you a little bit about it. So I did spend about 3 or 4 days reading the book in a short time. That's short for me. With Mr. Chuck Cowdery. So we're going to tell you about this one starting out.
Which one is this?
This is the A.H. Hirsch Reserve 16-year-old bourbon. This is a gold foil edition. They also have one, I think it's gold wax.
Right.
But this is the one that everybody would say probably the most reviewed, most desirable, I would say, from a whiskey aficionado, bourbon aficionado. This was actually distilled in the spring of 1974. Now, they were pretty liberal back then, so a lot of these things we're going to say, they might not be 100% true.
It's liberal as in they were all Democrats?
No, liberal as in maybe they aren't telling the truth all the time. They're liberal with history, liberal with the truth, yes. So the spring of 1974 was actually between January 1st and June 30th. Specifically, this bottle, this distillate, was specifically distilled in February of March of that year, and there were 400 barrels. Now, where was it distilled at? That was in Pennsylvania. It was called the Schaefertown Distillery back then Penco, but I think most people would know it as Michter's.
Right.
So not the Michter's today in Louisville, but the one in Pennsylvania, which isn't there anymore.
Yes.
From this, the mash bill of this bourbon is 75% corn.
Now, are you certain about this, or is this like...
I am 98% certain.
98%?
Yeah.
Okay.
100 myself, but you know.
Okay.
75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley.
Sure.
It does have, from all accounts, it has beam yeast.
Okay.
So Dick Stoll was the master distiller back then for this place. He was taught under one of the Beams. So everybody knows that name, right?
Yeah.
Jim Beam, Knob Creek, whatever. But I was told, or what the book says, is that he actually reached out to family back home, was in Kentucky, and asked them to send him a sample of yeast to use in this.
Okay.
So that was what they used for this. Now, how true is that? I don't know. It's in the book.
Are we gonna find out that a lot of this is maybe true, maybe not true?
I think a lot of it's, kind of, it's out there.
Okay.
So we do have 3 bottles in front of us, though, and I want to say they're each different age state, I believe. Is this one 16 year too?
Yes.
Okay, so 2 of them are the same. One of them's different, 20 year.
In the 2 16s, we got the blue wax and then the
Correct.
gold foil. So those are different for anybody listening and not watching.
They are all the same distillate.
Right.
So it's a very convoluted process. We're going to go through that in detail in a minute, if Matt allows me. But let's talk a little bit about this bourbon again. So this is 91.6 proof. It has a barrel entry of proof at 115, which was actually a lot lower than today's bourbon.
Right.
So what's coming out?
Yeah.
The original price on this one in 2003. You want to take a guess, Matt?
I'm going to go $23.99.
Close. $43.95.
Okay, that's actually,
$43.95.
yeah.
You want to guess what this is worth today if you want to buy it?
$28.99.
2000. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 3,000 to 5,000 on this one,
yeah.
depending on where you're looking at on the enthusiast markets that may or may not exist.
Yeah. Now there's some that have sold for more than that.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd say, you look at these pages that may or may not exist, these don't come up very often.
No, they don't.
There's a reason, because people really want to drink these. They really enjoy them. This is a bourbon drinker's white whale.
Right.
Right?
Would you say this is your white whale?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Can we take a little sip?
No, we're just going to keep talking about it. Yeah.
My mouth's getting a little dry.
You got to wet your whistle. I did see that there was on record a bottle at Sotheby's in 2022 that sold for $8,125.
Okay.
And it was one of these 16-year blue waxes that we have in the middle
some of
here.
those
So
go
that might be the high on record. And again, secondary is going to be like a whole different beast, you know.
For sure.
I mean?
For sure.
So, let me give me your glass there.
Appreciate that.
I'm going to give you a
I'll
little
keep
dip
talking.
here while you keep talking.
So again, the guy that made this was Dick Stoll. That was the master distiller back then at Michter's in Pennsylvania. He learned from Everett Beam was his name. This one here was bottled in 2003 in Frankfort, Kentucky. Now, how did it get there? So they brought it from, could be a few different ways.
Okay.
They got it from Pennsylvania to Kentucky, we'll say by trucks. Some of this was actually tanked in stainless steel. Because if you look at this was bottled in 2003.
The gold foil 16-year.
That's right. And that was bottled in 2003. And then the red wax, which is 20-year-old, was actually bottled in 1995.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to do, right?
Right.
So again, this was bottled after the 16-year, but it was stored in stainless steel tanks.
Okay.
This was bottled by Julian Van Winkle.
Right.
So this one was at their Frankfort distillery. So what's Frankfort now? Do you know?
Buffalo Trace.
Buffalo Trace. Before that, if you look at the 20-year, if you're looking on camera here, the red wax, this one says it was bottled in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, which was where the Van Winkles had their distillery down there, or a place down there to bottle. Right. Sorry, a bottling place. All right, so a lot of different versions of this one. They have a 15, a 16, an 18, 19, and 20-year-old. They're all the same. They were bottled at different times. The 15-year-old was the first release, and that went to Japan.
Okay.
The 15, 18, and 19 are the most rare. You don't see those pop up at all. And in the last and largest release, still a small release, was the 16-year-old that we're drinking today,
and
the
that's
gold
the one
foil.
that people look for. Yeah.
And that's the one they're looking for.
So let me give you a little background on Mr. Hirsch himself. AH actually stands for Adolf Hermann Hirsch, and he was a former executive at Schenley Industries. For all intents and purposes, this guy was not like this big time bourbon distiller that was in the game, just like making bourbon everywhere that he went. He was an aficionado. He was like, I like bourbon. I'm going to make good bourbon. So I'm going to contact these people and I'm going to tell them what I want and we're going to manufacture it. The problem is nobody fucking wanted bourbon back then. So he couldn't sell the shit. Now I've seen stories where maybe he was like even wanting to make it for like gifts and maybe give it to like friends and family or whatever.
Yeah.
But basically what it came down to is he couldn't move the product that he had. And that's why it ended up sitting, unfortunately, and it commanded a premium price tag. What did you say the retail was on it?
$43.95 in 2003.
In 2003, which was, again, that was kind of like leading into the bourbon boom. Like a few years after that, I think it started to pick up steam. But it's just like nobody was really spending that kind of money. They probably were, honestly, but like you get much higher than that, and then people are just kind of like, why would I spend money on that when vodka is $18
for sure?
Here? You know what I mean?
Remember, too, in the 80s and maybe early 90s,
right?
America was probably going more towards like the blended spirits still.
Yes.
Japanese, we still like bourbon and everything and rye, but Japan, overseas markets, they really like the aged stuff.
Yes, they do. And that's honestly what makes bourbon so fun. And I think that's why people really caught on to it ultimately, and it's become such a huge market, is because bourbon has become this kind of monster unto itself. Like, you got barrel aging, everything is a different proof, everything is a different barrel, everything is like a different mash bill, you know what I mean? You get into any other spirit, which you watch the show, you listen to the show, you know that we experiment with everything. You do rum, you do cognac, you do vodka. Everything is homogenized. That's fine, I get it, you know? But it's like, Pat over here off camera, we were talking about it, it's just like, every single bottle back there is got like a guy's name on it because people are really proud of it. And it really is a testament to that trade. You know what I mean?
Correct.
But we talked about it before. There's a place for that, and there's a place for homogenization too. You can get a great bottle of rum that is, blended with the cellar method, and it's like it'll taste good with every batch you get, and they do that on purpose. You know what I mean? But there's something romantic about like finding a dusty bottle that is like 30 years old or some shit that has this or older that has some weird unique like flavor profile, and you can like pick it out. Like, that's fun.
It's very fun.
That's actually really fun. So anyways,
they used to have, talk about dusty bottles. I mean, when I first got into bourbon, probably serious into bourbon, probably 2016, right around there. I was into it probably since back 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
But when I first started getting serious into it, you could find some dusties. Now, dusties back when I started looking in 2016 were maybe from the late 90s.
Right.
But if you would have started searching like early 2000s, you probably could have found some stuff from the 80s, maybe even the 70s at some of these like country liquor stores.
Yeah.
And again,
I think that's how a lot of people probably found theirs, It's just looking at the backstop.
Like you said, though, it's the bourbon hunters. It's like the chasing the unicorn, finding the unicorn, right?
But you can't do that anymore.
Oh, no. It's everything's so picked over. Kind of cracks me up, though.
Or behind a glass case.
True.
Right? Yeah.
More than secondary, actually.
Yeah.
But it kind of cracks me up, too. I mean, some of the popular YouTube channels, and nothing against them, but people love their bourbon hunting videos. Their bourbon hunting videos are going into a liquor store and seeing nothing. Like, it's like, oh, here's a Henry McKenna for $100. Well, okay, you can get that at any store you want to go to, Here's a Pappy. We found a Pappy 20. Well, how much was it? $8,000. Okay.
It's like
I'm not buying it.
I remember my daughter when she was like a little kid watching YouTube videos, and it was like people like going through toy stores and like buying toys and shit. And like, look what I found. I got a fucking Hatchimals here, and I'm going to open it. And I'm like, the fuck are you watching 6-year-old girl? And she's like, this is where it's at, Dad. Like, this is what people do. And I'm like, okay, like, have fun with that.
I have watched video games with my son. People playing video games.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing too. It's just like watching, like, you got the video game. You're watching somebody playing the fucking video game you have. Like
100%, 100%.
So anyways.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, sorry.
No, that's actually pretty much most of the background on A.H. Hirsch. I was trying to give you a chance to drink your bourbon.
No, you're good. I've only had one little sip. I'm definitely coming back to it.
So what do you think of it?
So honestly, on the nose, for me, it's very subtle.
Yeah.
And you know me. I mean, I'm used to drinking kind of barrel proof stuff. Yeah. This one's what, 91.5, 91.6, somewhere around there.
I like that. I like that
It range. Smells fantastic. I mean, if you want me to pick out notes from just the nose, I mean, I'm getting vanilla for sure. It's a little bit. It's a delicate fruit. I don't know what kind of fruit I would say it is, though.
I know what you mean. It's almost like a pungent kind of umami kind of thing. I'm not gonna go as extreme as durian.
No,
But like if you were to take something like that, but like round it out and like water it down to where it's got like this very like full umami. Like I'm getting like some of that on it, and it is like you said, it's light, but it's almost kind of like. Dusty is a generic word to use in this instance because it's obviously a dusty bottle, but like, yeah, I feel like I can like pull that out of it.
Tasty notes for me, definitely oak. A lot of times with older bourbon, you get kind of that funkiness, and this, I'm getting some of that as well.
I think the funk is what we're getting off of that. Yeah.
Definitely it's just so many flavors. I've never had a lower proofed whiskey like this or bourbon.
Yeah.
That probably gives me as much flavor from it. The finish is great.
Yeah.
I'm a big finish guy for bourbon. Yeah. So it's one of my favorite
I heard
things.
you like it, like to finish.
So let's talk about. Thank you. So let's talk about what
we'll get there. We're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there. So let's talk about why this would be good or unique. Okay. So some of the things they talked about in the book, read online a little bit, is there's a doubler. So a doubler, typically when you have a still, you have a doubler. It works in line with the column still.
Okay.
So it's like, I'll call it a thumper or whatever it is. I don't know a ton about distilling, but I'm just kind of going off what I read.
Sure, riff, baby.
So from there, Michter's, though, had a separate one. So it was not in line with their hell, I can't even think, their column still. It was not in line with
Okay.
So what that allowed them to do is allow them to separate that. And then they actually got to double distill.
Okay, I can't wait for the one comment that's like, you're completely wrong. Here's how it actually works.
No, I've got notes.
He's got notes.
That could be one reason they say.
Okay.
Another reason could be the Pennsylvania climate.
Okay.
Even though it wasn't there a ton of time, they have longer, colder winters. Right. So it may have prevented some of that tannic or the over oakiness flavor.
Sure.
Again.
Okay.
Could be. The other one could be the travel. So this bourbon traveled.
It did.
In barrels.
Yeah.
From Pennsylvania to Ohio and Kentucky, like down through.
It's so like Jefferson's land.
That's right. Sure.
Maybe. Not ocean, but because that was the whole concept behind it, just like sloshing around and stuff.
When the heat too, they have the tropics.
Yeah.
Remember, we actually tried that one a while back.
Yeah.
So could have been that, and then also they talk about oxidation could have been a possibility, even though it was in stainless tanks for a while.
You're right.
Some of this distillate, it could have been maybe some air got in. Maybe it wasn't airtight back then. Who knows? Because it was in some of these tanks for like 12 years.
Right.
Looking at this.
Right.
So kind of crazy. Again, all theories. Who knows what it is?
But and even with oxidation, like to a certain degree, that can be a good thing at certain levels.
Now, some rumors that we've heard a lot online. If you look this up, they're not true. They've been dispelled. They're not true.
So you're going to give me some not true rumors.
I am. I want you to know the facts, Matt.
You mean the non-facts?
The facts that aren't facts.
Okay.
So it was not left behind distillate that Michter's is left behind. That was not what this was.
Like current Michters?
Well, so when Michter's closed in Pennsylvania, it was done. Their name actually was abandoned. So the place that's in Louisville actually filed for that trademark or whatever it is and got that brand.
Completely different product now from
100%.
What we have here.
But when they shuttered the doors up there was a lot of product left, like hundreds of barrels, maybe thousands of barrels that nobody wanted. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really bourbon that was left. It was kind of like whiskey. It wasn't even 51% corn. Like there was a lot of shit up there that nobody wanted.
Gotcha, okay.
So that's why. That's not what this was. No. This was not left, forgot, whatever. From the barrel a day, a lot of people say this is from a barrel a day distillery they had set up there. So they had like a little small setup, a distillery that could produce 1 barrel a day, just on site. A lot of people say it was from that, but it's not, because that was not set up until 1976. This was made in 1974.
Elaborate on the barrel a day site.
So if you think about in the Pennsylvania site there, the distillery, their large still was probably producing, I don't know how many hundreds of gallons a day or barrels a day.
Right.
On that single one, it was only doing 1 a day.
Is this an experimental setup?
Kind of. What they said was happening, though, was the distillery could not be at full functioning a lot of times, which is honestly a death sentence to a distillery. Right. If you're not running at full function or wanting to expand, trying to run that thing,
you're losing money.
You're losing money. You're losing everything, and they were. So a lot of times, if they had visitors came up there and toured the facility, they would have that running. But that only was set up in 1976.
Gotcha.
Now, what they made in that, I'm not 100% sure, but it was not this.
So the people are putting the dates together and thinking that's what it came from.
But when you hear about that, like what made this so special, this is part of that, thing.
Okay.
But it's not true.
It's not true.
They also said the recipe was unusual. That is not true. Okay. This recipe from the mash bill we just told you about earlier, it's similar to almost every bourbon.
Sure.
I think one thing I learned from bourbon history on this product and other products I've looked up, there's a whole lot of storytelling. Yeah. There's a whole lot of tall tales. So I don't know that you'll ever 100% know exactly what happened to this product. Yeah. You look back to like A.H. Hirsch, he had this essentially for 15 years in barrels in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Why? he could have brought that out at 4 or 5 years, sold it, made some money, and avoided the taxes that he was paying out for the extra 10 years.
Well, that's true, but I mean, if people weren't buying, if people weren't into bourbon like they are now back then.
Yeah, but they're buying 4 to 5 year rock gut or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I guess that's what it comes down to. So he was kind of a purist. He wanted to make an exceptional product.
That could be. I got other theories.
Maybe that harkens back to ego. Maybe he's like, I'm not going to drop this down below the price point that I want it to be because I think it's worth it. What's your theory?
I think it's something different, looking online and stuff. Okay. So this guy was wealthy.
Right.
So he had a lot of ties to this Michter's distillery up there, Penco in Schaefertown, PA. Mm-hmm. They think that maybe the reason he contracted this done, these 400 barrels, was to give a little cash influx to that business to try to help them out. And the reason that he let it set is because he still wanted to help them out in some way. Like if he's paying them taxes to the government, plus he's paying them a storage fee. Okay. So he's trying to help them. So he really didn't move this. They didn't move this or try to move it to Kentucky to bottle it until that distillery was pretty much done. It was done.
I got you.
He was a rich dude, you know?
Yeah. He actually never really got to see how popular his bourbon became.
Oh, not at all.
He died in 1992 on November 27th. He was 86 years old. I tried to look it up. I think he just died of natural causes. I don't think he had any, disparaging disease or anything like that. But that's kind of sad.
It is.
Whatever.
He seemed like a great guy. I mean, he was running some nonprofits that were helping. He was an immigrant, so he came from Germany. But he was helping other immigrants get U.S. citizenship. So he was doing a lot of great things. He was an investment banker when he first came over. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason why he kind of got into distilling too. He was successful in that because he understood the money aspect.
Well, but it's just this was kind of like his his child. This was like he bore this and he was like, this is 100%. My baby. And he didn't get to see it come whatever, but I mean, this is fucking amazing.
It's a great bourbon. Yeah, is it the best bourbon you've ever tasted, or maybe never tasted?
The best bourbon I've never tasted.
But
I don't know.
Taste it.
Should I throw it back up and never taste it, so that way I just never taste it?
Get a cup though.
Throw it back up in my tiny cup. Yeah. But yeah, so we got a 16 year here, and this is the gold foil, and that's the one we tapped into. Fucking delicious. We got the blue wax here, which
also 16.
Yeah, also 16, and that should predate the gold foil, correct?
The dates are a little fuzzy, but I do think it should. This was the last one bottled, so it has to.
The gold foil was? Yeah. Okay, yeah. And then we got the red wax here,
which 20 year.
And that's the 20 year. And I read somewhere that I thought that I read that there was 500 bottles of that one made.
Could be.
But then it kind of comes down to conjecture because the 15 and the 19 were all exported, so it's how many of those are actually in circulation, or how hard are those really to get? But the 20, from what I saw, was actually even harder to get than the 16 possibly.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't see these come up for sale. You really don't.
Yeah.
Maybe on unicorn auctions or something else out there.
Yeah.
But
is there a website where you can buy unicorns?
There is a unicorn auction site. That's where you buy
unicorns.
Yeah. You don't buy bourbon on there.
No, it's unicorns.
Yeah.
What would be fucking really amazing is if we could try some of that 20 side by side with the 16. I don't
know if we can though.
I don't know. I think that might.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to try some.
You think those are floating anywhere? There's an open bottle anywhere?
I doubt it.
There might be one behind you.
Is there one? Is there one back here?
Yeah.
Oh my God! There's a fucking bottle right here. Can we try some of that? Are you sure?
Yeah. We're in.
Do you want to help us out here, Pat? And
I'll help you drink bourbon anyway.
So now, Pat, thanks again for letting us share this. Share this with us. We really appreciate it. Never would have had any other time. When did you?
Never will again. But
yeah, the price probably true.
Yeah, you guys aren't coming back over.
So when did you actually get these bottles? What years? Do you remember? The 16?
I don't know.
Gotcha.
A lot of these bottles I picked up, back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Some of them I picked up on secondary, but it was all kind of prior to the bourbon craze.
Big boom.
2013 was the final time of me going and buying anything.
Right.
I think a lot of people started getting out between there, maybe 2015. A lot of people I knew back then that were into bourbon.
It was starting to get popular then.
Yeah.
Well,
again, man, I mean, this is fantastic. Now, what's your thoughts on the 16? I know you're sipping it now.
I think it's different. I think one of the things that strikes me as odd about this whiskey, not odd, but it tastes a lot different to me than most whiskeys I've had.
Right.
So when you were saying earlier, like the recipe's not any different, I would sit here and have thought maybe it is.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, 100%.
It does taste a lot different. But I mean, that's like a lot of these unique whiskeys. It's like they may be very wildly different than, something made with a very similar mash bill.
Yeah.
While I was talking though, thinking about this as I was talking earlier, and we had that conversation too, I think what it might be that made this so different? It could have been that yeast. If they sent that yeast from Kentucky to Pennsylvania, I'm assuming in 1973, 74 when they sent it up there, maybe storage wasn't as good as it is now to get it there. Maybe something happened.
Possibly.
Maybe it's a mutated yeast.
Yeah, possibly. That's what, when talking to Preston Van Winkle one day, he was very adamant. I asked him, I said, we were talking about the differences between some of the newer Van Winkle product and the old Van Winkle product.
Yeah.
And he was kind of like, talking about, the corn back then with no GMOs and the wheat with no GMOs and the water being pure and the location of the old Fitzgerald distillery. And then that kind of led into me asking him, what's the biggest influence on the whiskey? Like, what's the biggest factor in why the product back then was so good and product now, it may be the same mash bill and everything, but tastes so different. And he was like, the yeast. And I was like, I wouldn't have thought that. I would have thought there would have been other influences more important. Or more impactful.
Yeah, more prevalent.
But he made it sound like
I would have never thought that either.
It was the yeast. But you're talking about a yeast from 1974, product from 74. I mean, I think it's great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But it's very different than I feel like some of the other whiskeys you have today.
It's full flavor. It drinks its proof. It doesn't drink under, doesn't drink over. I mean, but it's great. I mean, most of the time if you get a 130 proof bourbon, I want it to drink a little under. You know what I mean? Like taste a little bit under that proof, because if you get too hot to be hot, and a lot of times with underproof bourbon under 100 to me, I don't want it to taste hot. This one's perfect. I mean, I think it drinks its proof. It's really good for me.
Yeah.
Let's try this 20-year-old.
He's gonna fucking open it. Look at this.
You have to twist my arm.
Yeah.
I'll set my glass there for
I think
you.
angels sing whenever you take that cork off. So.
Now again, the 20 years kind of the same thing. It's very different. It doesn't taste like a traditional bourbon, and it's kind of like some of the scotches. Like you get to some of the high-end scotches, and you'll get some wild taste profiles that kind of wildly vary.
Which we keep talking about. We need to touch on scotch.
We need to jump
just
into.
Fucking haven't.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I wonder if it kind of goes back to some of that like funkiness that we were talking about that we were getting off the 16. Like there's some component in it during the aging process to where it's like, we bring it back to like beer or something where there is beer that's aged on purpose with that kind of funk. You get like a really nice lambic or something like that, and it's super strong. One of the adjectives they use is something like horse blanket, and it's like, well, fucking, I don't want a horse blanket in my goddamn beverage, but I mean, it's like some of that nuance you pull out, that funkiness in rum. Pat, you're familiar with rum, there is like a funkiness aspect to it. It kind of makes me wonder if maybe back then there was something during the process to where that was actually introduced into that as well.
It definitely could be. I mean, the nose on this one, I've not tried it yet, but it's totally different than that one there. And it's the same proof, which is crazy,
Yeah, which is kind of wild to try to understand when they released these.
And
the history, it's like there's so much kind of uncertainty. And
we've essentially had this one tanked for 12 years.
Which one? 20 years.
This one tanked for 12 years.
We assume because these two were released from Lawrenceburg.
Yeah.
Which means this one had to have been released probably the very first.
The blue wax,
The blue wax, I can only assume, well, they would have had it for, I guess, a year if there's a 15-year-old.
That's right.
So Lawrenceburg would have released... Julian would have released that the second year after probably buying the product, right? Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, he would have released the 20-year-old. But for this to be a 16 and be the last one released at Buffalo Trace in 2003,
yep.
Then, I mean, heck, that had to have been tanked at Lawrenceburg
at some point
to stop the aging process.
Yeah. Because they didn't have Frankfurt then.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they had some kind of weird agreement of...
I don't
think so.
Yeah, look, I don't know. It's interesting that this bottle I actually opened with Freddie Johnson.
Yeah.
Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, Buffalo Trace. I opened that bottle with him, tried it with him, and he had some cool stories about his father. You know, Freddie's a third generation Buffalo Trace employee. His dad and his grandfather both worked there, and Freddie's dad was the one that, you know, Freddie remembers when he was young. That coming through Buffalo Trace.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And there was all this, like, you know, nobody knew what it was, where it came from. There was, you know, and when Freddie talked about it was pretty cool because Freddie
There's a truck coming through with like a parade, chicken tape parade. Like, what the hell is that? I don't know.
He said it was all hush hush.
Oh, okay.
He said the opposite. He said, like, it came in and everybody was like, where'd this come from? And what is it? And there was all this, like, question mark about it. And Freddie's dad was kind of the person responsible for overseeing the product, you know, being brought to Buffalo Trace. But they tanked it at Buffalo Trace, and I guess that would have been do you know when the distillery closed down, or when Julian and Preston moved their product to? I don't know when they moved it to.
I would say
Buffalo Trace.
I would say at least 2000, right? I mean,
somewhere around then,
or a little bit earlier, maybe
98 or so. But anyways, it would have been tanked for probably 5 years at Buffalo Trace before they started pulling off of it.
Crazy, man. I mean, it's again, like with everything,
a lot of question marks.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, I met Freddie a couple times. He was a tour guy there. We did a barrel pick at Buffalo Trace about a year ago now, but fantastic storyteller. Actually, his family is from where I'm from, Breathitt County.
Nice.
So yeah, we talked about that for a while, but great dude, and it's awesome you guys share some pours with him, man.
It's like 4 people that live there, and you know,
there's like
one of them.
Yeah, I know.
It was fun.
I'm one.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a sentimental thing for Freddie because you know that was a
crazy.
big drink that he had with his dad. It was one of his dad's favorites. So
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It was cool to open it with Freddie, and
That's exactly what
it's all about.
Yeah,
Sharing a good pour with friends.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Yeah, cheers.
Appreciate you doing this. This is fucking
Cheers,
awesome. Fucking
Cheers
delicious.
you.
You can cheers me.
Whatever.
I don't want to get near your fucking boner over there. Put it away.
There's a reason I'm not standing up.
Thanks for tuning in. If you liked what you listened to or watched, please share it. If you didn't, then just keep drinking until you do. Check us out on all the socials. We are at Arsenic Culture, and we will see you on the next one.
Like and subscribe.